Are you ready, kids?
Hello, it's Employee a Million, and welcome back to SpongeComs. Not SpongeDoms, don't worry, I've corrected that. This episode is Season 4, Episode 16, or Episode 76 overall, The Thing, and Hocus Pocus, both of which originally premiered on Nickelodeon on January 15th, 2007. Happy New Year, we're in 2007 now, so full brand new year of iPhones and Ratatouille, so please don't stop the music. But the thing is, even though this episode premiered in 2007, it also didn't, but did at the same time, because from now on, for the rest of Season 4, all but one episode released early on the Season 4 Volume 2 DVD set on January 9th. So this was a DVD exclusive pair for 9 days, while the rest of Season 4, more or less, was DVD exclusive for a couple months at minimum, or most for some of them. It's confusing. Disc 2 for that set must have been spoiler central for the SpongeBob fandom for the early months of this year, but I don't think that many people would have wanted to be spoiled on The Thing anyway. It's not really considered a very good episode, but why is that? Well, nothing against the writers, Zeus Service, Eric Weiss, and Stephen Banks, but it is not good. I just described the episode as bad. My justification, it's not good. Okay, that makes no sense. But what is there to talk about with this thing? Well, it was named after a horror movie from 1982. But then again, The Thing is a pretty generic term. It could mean anything. It bears a little resemblance to the horror movie as far as I know. I haven't seen it. I don't see everything that SpongeBob is parodying, or else I'd be spending more time watching old movies than SpongeBob, and I don't really want to do that. But yeah, if you were already not impressed by episodes like Good Neighbors, then The Thing will not appeal to you, because this is another one of those where they're getting very deep into Squidward's POV, and sort of that affects the characterization of SpongeBob and Patrick, makes them too stupid to live at times, and that just sort of becomes a passion in the post-movie era, and eventually a lot of viewers get sick of that, but there are specific problems for this episode that, make it honestly worse than Good Neighbors in my opinion, because at least Good Neighbors just sort of has, this... It follows the formula, but isn't derivative of that many episodes. It's got its own gimmicks and ideas, and SpongeBob and Patrick do have a relapse in judgment near the end, which sort of throws the characterization of that episode in balance, but with The Thing, they're just completely stupid the whole way through. SpongeBob does show signs of wanting to help out, but if you look at this thing, most of it is just Squidward being annoyed or tortured, and I don't like using that word too often, but that's what it is. It's torture. He's trapped in cement and can't move, and the plot just happens to him. It's basically just a vehicle to get Squidward in as much pain as possible, and I mean, this works in small doses and if you've got snappy jokes, but especially here, this scene here, it definitely feels like they're retreading jellyfishing with Squidward, going away via bike, and then something happens to him that gets him entrapped in something. Last time it was bandages or casts, and now it's a bunch of sludge and cement and jellyfish stings, and he is in abject pain throughout the whole thing, and yeah, not fun. Like, for as slow and simplistic as jellyfishing is, at least it doesn't hammer in Squidward's pain quite as much. There is more to it than that. Squidward's pain is a big part of that episode, but you've also got SpongeBob and Patrick knowing that it's Squidward for one thing and trying to help him, whereas in this episode, they don't know throughout the whole thing that this is Squidward, even though the eyes and nose should be fairly familiar. And this might be a odd take, I don't know. Haven't seen enough defenders of this episode to quantify this, but I really just don't find Squidward's cemented design, quote unquote smelly, to be all that funny. Like, compared to the episode this is paired with, this is just not a dynamic design for gags or situations. It's just a tube of cement with vaguely Squidwardy, proportions and a leaf sticking out at the end, and there's just not much you can do with it aside from turn it into a punching bag for, whatever sick, twisted kicks these writers have. And I say that as if they're monsters, but no, they're just writing what they think is funny, and fair enough. But I have the right to say when it isn't that funny. And, okay, there are some good jokes in this episode. I do think that the final moments of this episode are a saving grace to an extent. And there are a few jokes that aren't as bad as the others. Like, honestly, anything with Kelpie G is going to be good, even if he just never appears in the best episodes. I do like Kelpie G. I like how Squidward has an interest now, much like SpongeBob has Mermaid Man and Barnacle Boy. And Kelpie G is popular enough to where people don't care that he's a post-movie exclusive, as far as I know. I don't necessarily remember him in anything from the post-sequel episodes that I've seen, or at least no big roles. So, yeah, pretty much a post-movie adjacent character that the fans really like, and more power to them. This is a very good character, and I wish he was used in more and better episodes. Oh, and here's where not only the jokes get a bit weird, but the plot as well. It is absolutely strange how, okay, suddenly it turns from day to night. Maybe there was a cut, I don't know. But then Squidward gets captured by these people, and then they take him to the zoo? Why? Why is that the plot that we're going for? Of, animal control. They find this animal that is very difficult to identify. Why don't we put him in a zoo? Where's the logic in that? I know this is nautical nonsense, but this just feels like a chance to go to the zoo. And, this little leg of the episode where, SpongeBob and Patrick are trying to help Smelly out. This period after we just have to see him in the zoo being miserable, and SpongeBob and Patrick have to see that, and then they break in at night. There is something to that could have felt like a place for them to discover something about Smelly, maybe a hint here and there that this could be Squidward. But after all, Squidward has been gone for 5 days. For everything else I give this episode crap for, day 5 is a good line read. But then you've got jokes like this with the mustard and the hot dog, and it just falls flat. Just feels like a joke for the sake of lightening up the mood. But why would you need to lighten up the mood? Isn't Squidward being, encased in cement funny enough? Oh, well, I don't want to be too bitter, because after they find Squidward and break him out and go in the sewer that somehow goes to a thing realm, I don't think it's the kelp forest. I'm just going to call it the thing realm and hope that catches on. I think that is a good part of the episode. It is, I see what they're trying to do, give Squidward this happy ending, even if some of it is esoteric. It's not exactly how he would want things to go. Because you've got him looking like these weird creatures that, Bikini Bottom has never identified. Somehow, because this plot is so jumpy, they find it in the sewer, and that's the sewer somehow leads to the thing realm. People have never figured that out until now. It's just completely out of the blue. This is apparently how reality works, and okay, if it leads to a positive for Squidward after everything that happens to him in this episode, then fair enough. But then you also get the things, the woolly smellies being fans of Kelpie G, and that is, a decent little plot twist, that Squidward has something in common with these bizarre creatures that he never would have liked otherwise. But the ending to that, where, Squidward, breaks out of his shell a bit too late, and, it looks like maybe they're going to attack him, maybe they're not. I don't think that was the intention of the ending at all. I don't think that that's a negative ending for Squidward. After all, he's with KelPG. I think that these creatures would not be hostile to octopi. So, yeah, I'm talking about the ending a lot more than, the other scenes in this episode, because there really isn't that much to talk about with this episode. It is just jellyfishing, but amped up, and SpongeBob and Patrick are really dumb for not realizing that this is Squidward. And, there are some strange creatures in Bikini Bottom, but, yeah, at least with Mr. Seaweed Monster from last week, they couldn't mistake that for someone. And I do kind of like the foliage of this place. Kind of, if you thought the kelp forest looked weird, this sort of has, exotic, tropical vibes that the kelp forest didn't really have. And here's our little reward for getting through the thing. If we ever want to watch it again, just some nice, smooth jazz and, a possible happy ending for Squidward. And otherwise, I don't want to watch this much again. Bad episode. But Hocus Pocus is better. Written by Casey Alexander, Chris Mitchell, and Stephen Banks. And, right from the start, this episode is a bit more ambitious comedically, because it tries to introduce a new word to the dictionary of SpongeBob, platitudinous. Well, after this whole popcorn gag and the, car wash soap opera that SpongeBob is apparently a fan of now. It's just one scene, but, there's potential there. So there's this commercial for a magic kit, and the guy says platitudinous, and if you don't know the meaning of the word platitude, it basically is a noun for something that is boring or cliche, and I think that's part of the reason why platitudinous never took off outside of, a small selection of the SpongeBob community, because not only does it not roll off the tongue, but it is what it describes. It's platitudinous. It's just a silly name, and that's about it. But I do like platitudinous. I do like that it is sort of this, good thing that us SpongeBob fans have gotten out of this episode, because even though this is another one where SpongeBob and Patrick are, not the sharpest tools in the shed, and honestly, that can happen in any era, I do think that this episode has more jokes. It has a better story than The Thing. But also, I think it was a good idea to pair it with The Thing, because Hocus Pocus does something that very few other SpongeBob episodes do, and it gives Squidward the opportunity to escape the plot that he's in. I really like this gag coming up of, Squidward having the best day of his life, encountering SpongeBob for 20 seconds, getting, tired immediately, and then that's his cue to leave and let the plot become something else. It's got a bit of a Krusty Towers vibe, just without him being, part of the plot for that long. And I really like how we're 4 seasons in and he finally gets the idea to do this more regularly. And this episode also has other cool ideas and jokes that have stuck with more people. The Thing had KelPG as sort of a thing that stuck with the general public. This has a scene of, Tom, the brown background fish in the purple shirt, and his son for this week, because, who's the father and who's the son of every background fish always seems to change. I wanted to do a video about that a while back, just sort of keeping track of who's the mother, father, son, daughter of who, and making this big sitcom drama out of it. But, yeah, it never made much sense, so That's a good face. Never made much sense, so why even bother? But yeah, the joke of the kid crying over having a pistachio ice cream and Tom asking why he even asked for it. You know, I don't think we'll ever understand the context for why he even has a pistachio ice cream in the first place, but I do like how it's used. Okay, I don't like every usage of it, but I do like how it's caught on to make fun of unsatisfied fans of anything. The pistachio ice cream has layers. It can be interpreted as anything for the sake of a joke or a gag, or it can mean anything in the context of the meme that it has inspired. And it's just good, versatile writing, and it inspired good, versatile joke making among memers, for lack of a better word. And also, here's something that Hocus Pocus has that the thing doesn't. A good, Squidward design. I love the design of the Squidward ice cream. You know, they had to jump through a hoop of making it pistachio flavored just so it isn't too bizarre. But yeah, I do kind of like how they change it and morph it and how it already kind of looks, sad. I do like how they change the, eyebrows sometimes and the eyelids and the movement of it. Whether how much it's dripping, that changes. It's actually dynamic. It can change to make the episode change. It can change to make the plot go forward, and that is good. I think my favorite design of it is when it's completely fallen out of the cone in a little bit here, and it basically just looks like a green embryo. It's gross when you think of it that way, but not so much when you've got, SpongeBob freaking out over it and thinking that it's the real Squidward. And again, this is a big old wacky misunderstanding episode, but it has more fun with that misunderstanding. It plays with it because, whether or not magic exists in the world of SpongeBob, it has been tested before in the episode Wishing You Well, but here's an episode where, they fiddle around with it, They make SpongeBob look like a dope for believing that this magic set can make him a magician, but at the end, he does manage to turn Patrick into mayonnaise. That is a nice looking, room for SpongeBob's freezer. But yeah, I do like things about this episode, even if it is another big step in making SpongeBob and Patrick, too dumb to seriality. But that's a small price to pay, honestly, for all the things this episode does right. It gets Squidward out of the house, metaphorically, and also out of the story, just to make room for this ice cream cone that has more comedic potential than if they actually turned Squidward into an ice cream, because, yeah, I do think that this gag of Patrick trying to lick it is okay, if he doesn't think that SpongeBob is serious about the ice cream being Squidward. Because, it's sort of like the gag in Wet Painters with the vending machine, but a little amped up and not quite as funny as that, but still in that ballpark where you see what they're doing. One thing that kind of confuses me about this episode is that they turn it into a Wizard of Oz parody for about a minute here. And The Wizard of Oz is a movie that I've only ever watched once in my life. I do respect it, but it is something that my mum rented on DVD for me, basically saying, this is a movie you have to watch before this or that certain age. Have you ever read those sorts of articles and stuff? Yeah, basically, I was just randomly shown it one day, and I liked it. I have fond memories of it, and I do understand its importance to live-action filmmaking. But yeah, it's kind of odd that they turned this into a Wizard of Oz parody. Not completely odd, because I do like the idea of this being a Wizard of Oz situation with the head and the scene of Patrick uncovering the Wizard of Oz with the machine. But it is just kind of odd that they go this far with it, make it a brown brick road, and Sorry, I can't say brown bricks without thinking of Inspector Gadget. Screw you, Mike Matei. But yeah, okay, got that out of my head, and I like the parody. It's just kind of weird that they turn it into a parody for about a minute, because whenever SpongeBob does parodies, it's usually either, the point of an episode or very subtle stuff. It's not like The Simpsons where they can dedicate 30 seconds to a minute of a parody and it can be funny regardless of if you know the parody or not. With this case, it is very blatant what they're parodying. If you've seen it before. Otherwise, this is just sort of a break in the plot to hammer home that this ain't a respectable business. Wouldn't you know, a Nickelodeon show talking about unrespectable businesses. And I do kind of think that this final form of Squidward and the ice cream is fine. And I do like the way that it ends with SpongeBob reciting a bunch of silly words, and that somehow, brings Squidward back. But then he leaves with an Evel Knievel lookalike, and this episode would have been written in 2006, I want to say, about a year before this episode aired. So, I am very surprised, but also a bit thankful that they didn't go for a Harry Potter spell at any point. Left it timeless in that sense. But one reference also in this episode that, always throws me off when it's brought up as a reference is the beard of Rasputin that SpongeBob wears near the start of the episode. Because that was an actual, I don't remember if he was a medic or something, but he is a famous figure, and then he just sort of became known as a magician or some sort of spiritual force. But yeah, beard of Rasputin, that just kind of goes over my head every time. And this doesn't. Association of Patrick with mayonnaise. Good old Band Geeks illusion, I want to say. But that is Hocus Pocus, a much better episode than The Thing. And last week, my question time for you was, what's your favorite Fantastic Voyage episode in a cartoon? Dashiell said, I like the episode Crash from Teen Titans. I do remember being quite critical of that in the video, but it has got funny moments, to be fair. Well, Paul and Worcester says that Phineas and Ferb episode where they went inside Candace's stomach and Doof at the end credits up and Pinky. Yeah, that's a good one too. I do like the end line. One of the best lines they ever did. He also likes Blazing Entrails from Ren and Stimpy. Brendan Barney, the Magic School Bus episodes For Lunch and Inside Ralphie. Yeah, those are fine. I didn't include Journeys into Animals in that video, but I only just recently watched the Magic School Bus episode where they go inside a hen's womb to see how an egg is fertilized, and I'm not only am I surprised they let that on TV, but I'm surprised that that is something they did. That was season 4. I can't imagine they were completely out of ideas or anything, but yeah, kind of a surprising episode. Bryce Fawn says that they'd have to pick Micro Timmy from Fairly OddParents, Journey to the Center of Carl from Jimmy Neutron, Blazing Entrails from the original Ren and Stimpy. Side note, but have you seen any of Alex Bale's SpongeBob theories here on YouTube, considering that he finished making them recently? Oh yeah, I do like Alex Bale's. They're very funny. Sparkling with Nights, Nano Zim from Invader Zim, Parasites Lost from Futurama, and Journey to the Center of Carl from Jimmy Neutron. Angry Jack would choose Nano Zim from Invader Zim, Fantastic Voyage from Dexter's Lab, Tiny Timmy from Fairly OddParents, Parasites Lost from Futurama, and Charlotte Reisner says Bill Nye's The Science Guy episodes that have a Fantastic Voyage theme. I don't think I included live action in that, but if we want to throw live action in that, Doctor Who has done it twice. And I think of the Doctor Who ones that have done Fantastic Voyage. The more recent one with the Dalek is better. There's one they did in the 70s where, the blood cells are depicted as giant cotton balls and Louise Jameson has to pretend to be afraid of them. It's silly and goofy, but that's the classic series for you. And Random Lad says Phineas and Ferb, Futurama, and Invader Zim. All fairly interesting choices. My question for you today is, what's your favorite word invented by SpongeBob? Because it's not like The Simpsons or Seinfeld where they just use a lot of words that have become associated with those shows or were invented by those shows' writers. But it has a few, and my vote would be Smeckledorfed, because Mr. Krabs says in the context of that episode it's not even a word, but I just use it as a go-to for fooled or conned, and it's sort of got some SpongeBob association, and I like it for that. But next week, we've got Patrick getting some power, some horsepower in Driven to Tears, and some political power in Rule of Dumb. Goodbye for now.